Hello, everyone. You see the smile, the laughter, the moments of joy. But do you see the nights filled with tears, the silent battles fought alone, the dreams deferred but not forgotten? In a world where appearances often overshadow realities, it's easy to assume that a smile signifies a life without pain. But behind every radiant expression, there might be a story of resilience, of battles fought in silence, of strength drawn from the depths of despair. You know, there are moments when you walk into a room and see someone with the brightest smile. They're laughing, engaging, lighting up the place, and in that moment, you believe they have it all together. They seem untouched by hardship, like life has only handed them beauty, success, and grace. But what we don't see, what we rarely take time to ask, is what lies behind that smile. There are people who wake up every day, put on their best face, and walk into the world carrying invisible burdens. They don't complain, they don't broadcast their pain, they smile, not because everything is perfect, but because they've learned how to live with the imperfections. They've mastered the art of appearing okay even when their hearts are heavy. And that kind of strength, that silent endurance, that's what makes their smile even more powerful. Many of us have become experts at hiding our wounds. We've grown used to saying "I'm fine" when we're breaking inside. Because sometimes being honest about what we're going through feels like a burden to others, so we keep it all in. We hide behind humor, we hide behind work, we hide behind filters, both online and in real life, because it's easier to be accepted when we look like we're winning. But deep inside there are battles, long silent battles that no one applauds, and it's in those unseen moments where real character is built. You see, there are people who smile even when they're grieving. People who show up every day while battling depression, people who look composed but are silently dealing with family problems, financial struggles, self-doubt, and sometimes they're the ones cheering others on, giving advice, encouraging someone else. All while their own hearts are shattering. They do it because they know what it feels like to be alone in a dark season, and so they become a light for others, even when they have to sacrifice their own flame. We often admire people for their confidence, their achievements, their grace under pressure, but we rarely stop to think about the price they paid to get there. We forget the tears they cried in the dark, the nights they couldn't sleep, the prayers they whispered hoping for just enough strength to make it through one more day. Some smiles were shaped by suffering. Some confidence was built through rejection. Some grace was born out of failure. And when you truly know someone's story, you realize it wasn't luck, it was never just talent. It was endurance, it was faith. It was survival, and sometimes the reason people smile so much is because they know how painful life can be without hope. They smile because they made it out of a season that tried to destroy them. They smile because they're grateful, not for a perfect life, but for a life that still has purpose in spite of the pain. That's why it's important to never judge someone's joy too quickly. You don't know what they had to overcome to be able to laugh like that. You don't know the strength it took for them to stand tall, to show up, to say yes again. The truth is, some of the strongest people you'll ever meet are also the softest, because hardship made them compassionate. It broke them in ways that made them more understanding, more real, more gentle. And if you're one of those people, if you're smiling today, but you're going through something no one sees, I want you to know, your strength is not invisible. Just because they don't see the struggle doesn't mean it's not valid. You're allowed to be proud of yourself for simply surviving, for choosing to be kind when you could have been cold, for choosing to keep going when you had every reason to give up. So keep smiling, not to hide your struggle, but to remind yourself that even in pain, you still have power, even in silence, you still have a voice, and even in brokenness, you are still worthy of joy. Because the world may love your smile, but it's your struggle that makes it sacred. There are moments in life when everything feels like it's falling apart, when the things you prayed for don't come, when the people you love walk away, when you give your best, but it still isn't enough. And in those moments, the world feels quiet, but not the kind of peace we hope for. It's the silence of being stuck, the heaviness of wondering, how do I keep going when everything inside me wants to quit? But somehow, you do. You get up the next day even when your heart is tired. You go to work even when your dreams feel distant. You show up for your family, your friends, even when you have nothing left to give. That is resilience, not the absence of pain, but the decision to rise in the middle of it, to keep walking even when the path is unclear, to keep believing even when your faith is shaken. Resilience isn't loud. It doesn't always look like winning. Sometimes it looks like crying in your car, but still going to that meeting. It looks like failing over and over, but refusing to stop trying. It's the quiet strength of a mother who holds her family together while battling her own demons. It's the courage of someone who chooses healing even when the wounds run deep. It's the patience of a person who waits for answers, for change, for light at the end of a very long tunnel. You don't need to shout to be strong. You just need to keep standing even when your knees are shaking, and the truth is, we don't always see resilience in the people around us. We often celebrate the success, the promotions, the awards, the applause. But behind all of that, there's a story of perseverance, the part where they almost gave up, the chapter where they failed and no one clapped for them, the night they cried themselves to sleep because the weight was too much. We don't post those moments, but that's where real growth happens, in the waiting, in the breaking, in the rebuilding. It's easy to smile when everything is working out, but it takes strength to smile when everything is uncertain. That kind of strength doesn't come overnight. It's built, pain by pain, choice by choice. You build it when you choose not to let bitterness win, when you choose to love again, trust again, start again. Even when your past gave you every reason not to. And sometimes resilience means walking away from people who drain you, from places that no longer serve you, from versions of yourself that you've outgrown. It takes strength to say, this is not who I'm meant to be, to step into the unknown even when you're scared. That's brave, that's power, but don't mistake resilience for perfection. You'll still have days when you feel weak. You'll still make mistakes, you'll still question your path, but resilience means you don't stay stuck there. You feel what you need to feel, but you don't unpack and live in the pain. You process it. You learn from it, and you carry the lesson with you. There's something beautiful about the people who have been through the fire and still choose to be soft, who have been hurt but still choose to be kind. They know what suffering feels like, and so they move through the world with a little more empathy, a little more grace. That's what resilience gives you. It doesn't just toughen you, it softens you in the right ways. If you're in a season right now where everything feels heavy, where every day feels like a battle, please know this. Just by holding on, you're already doing better than you think. The fact that you're still here, still trying, still praying, that matters. You don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to keep going, one step, one breath, one moment at a time, and maybe you haven't seen the reward yet. Maybe you're wondering if it's all worth it. It is, because even now something is growing in you, a strength that cannot be taken away, a deeper sense of who you are, a faith that isn't based on feelings, but on the quiet belief that you were made for more. Resilience doesn't mean you'll never fall. It means you'll always rise, and that rising, that's your power. It's so easy to look at someone's life from the outside and think we know their story. We see the clothes they wear, the places they go, the way they speak or post on social media, and in seconds we start to form an opinion. We think we understand who they are, what kind of life they've lived, what kind of choices they've made. But what we forget is how much of a person's life is hidden from view. We all carry stories that don't show on our faces. We all have wounds that can't be seen in a photograph, and yet, how quick we are to judge. We scroll through timelines, we catch glimpses of people in a moment, and we make assumptions without ever hearing their full story. It's not fair, but we all do it, sometimes without even realizing. The truth is, people are much deeper than the surface they show. That girl who seems so put together, she might be holding herself together with every ounce of strength she has. That guy who's always joking around. Maybe he learned to use humor as a way to hide the pain he doesn't know how to talk about. That friend who suddenly distanced themselves, they might be fighting a battle they don't know how to explain. And that's why it's so important to slow down, to stop looking at life through snapshots and start listening with our hearts. Because people are more than what they seem. We don't know what someone is carrying. We don't know the pressure they're under, the trauma they've survived, the heartbreak they're still healing from. Everyone is fighting something, and sometimes the strongest ones are the ones who stay quiet about it. We need to stop assuming we know what someone's going through just because they smile. Smiles can be masks, they can be shields, they can be someone's way of surviving, and just because they don't cry in front of us doesn't mean they're not breaking behind closed doors. Just because they don't share their pain doesn't mean it doesn't exist. You don't get to know someone just by looking at their success. You get to know someone when you understand what it took to get there. You get to know them when they feel safe enough to let you in, to show you the mess behind the beauty, the scars behind the strength, and that takes trust, that takes patience, that takes love. Sometimes we miss out on truly beautiful connections because we judge too quickly. We dismissed people because of how they looked, or where they came from, or how they didn't fit into the box we had in mind. But real relationships, real understanding, only happens when we go deeper, when we're willing to ask, "How are you really?" and mean it. When we sit down and listen without rushing to speak, when we look at someone and choose to believe there's more to their story than what we see, and it goes both ways. We've all been judged too, we've all felt misunderstood, labeled, misread, and we know how much that hurts. So why would we do that to someone else? Why would we make someone feel smaller just because we didn't take the time to understand? What the world needs now is more compassion. More grace, more people who are willing to look beyond appearances and say, "I see you. I might not know your whole story, but I won't reduce you to a single chapter." People who lead with empathy instead of assumptions. People who remember that even the ones who seem strong might be holding back tears. So the next time you find yourself forming a quick opinion about someone, pause, ask yourself, do I really know what they've been through? Have I taken the time to understand? Could there be more to their journey than what I'm seeing right now? Because most of the time there is. We all want to be seen for who we really are, not just what we show. We all want to be loved, not judged, so let's give that to others. Let's be the kind of people who don't just look, but truly see. Let's choose kindness, even when it's easier to criticize. Let's choose depth, even when the world tells us to stay on the surface. Because behind every face, there's a story, and everyone deserves the chance to be known beyond the first glance. There's something powerful about choosing to be real in a world that constantly tells you to be perfect. We live in a time where everyone seems to have it together, at least online. Perfect photos, perfect lives, perfect moments. But deep down, we know that's not the full story. Behind every curated post, there's a real person. With real fears, real flaws, real feelings, and what the world needs now more than ever is truth. Being authentic doesn't mean you have to expose everything. It doesn't mean you tell the world all your secrets or wear your pain on your sleeve. It means being honest about who you are, where you are, and what you feel, without needing to perform for anyone. It means showing up as yourself, not as a version of you that people expect. But it's hard, isn't it? Because somewhere along the way, we learned that being real makes us vulnerable, that if we show the messy parts, people might judge us, that if we're too honest, we might not be accepted, so we shrink ourselves. We filter not just our photos, but our personalities. We dim our light because we're afraid it might be too much. Or worse, we try to be someone else, thinking that who we are is not enough, but the truth is, who you are is exactly what someone else needs. Not the polished version, not the edited version, the honest one, the real one, the one that knows joy and sorrow, the one that's still figuring it out. The one that's been through things and still chooses to love, still chooses to believe, still chooses to hope. Authenticity is not weakness, it's courage. It's standing in front of the world, not with a mask, but with your heart. Saying, "This is me, I'm not perfect, I'm still growing, but I'm not hiding anymore." You know what happens when you start living that way. You start attracting people who value you, not for what you do or what you have, but for who you are. You stop chasing validation and start embracing connection, real connection, the kind that lasts, the kind that doesn't require you to keep pretending, because let's face it, we're all tired of pretending. Tired of comparing our behind the scenes with someone else's highlight reel, tired of smiling when we want to cry, tired of acting strong when we just want someone to say, it's okay to not be okay. When you live authentically, you give others permission to do the same. You become a safe space, your honesty becomes a bridge, your vulnerability becomes someone else's courage. That's how healing happens, not through perfection, but through presence, through truth, through realness. And yes, not everyone will understand. Some people will still judge, some might walk away, but those who stay, the ones who choose you in your truth, those are the ones who matter, those are your people. And you won't find them by being someone you're not. You find them when you stop hiding. Sometimes being real means admitting that you're not okay, that you're tired, that you're hurt. Sometimes it means saying no when people expect you to say yes. Sometimes it means walking away from what's popular to protect what's sacred, and that takes strength, that takes clarity, that takes knowing your worth. Your story, with all its twists and turns, is not something to be ashamed of. It's what makes you human, it's what makes you relatable. People connect with real stories, not perfect ones, so stop trying to write a flawless narrative. Embrace the parts that didn't go as planned. Own your truth, even the messy parts. Especially the messy parts, because the most beautiful things in life are rarely perfect. They're raw, they're honest, they're true. So show up, be seen, speak your truth even if your voice shakes. Don't water yourself down to make others comfortable. Don't hide the parts of you that are still healing. You are allowed to be a work in progress. You are allowed to be both broken and beautiful. You are allowed to be real. And when you start living that way, you'll discover a kind of peace that no one can take from you, a confidence that doesn't come from applause but from alignment, from knowing that who you are deeply, truly, is more than enough. That's the power of being real. That's the freedom of authenticity. There's something special about hearing a story that touches your heart, a story that makes you pause, makes you feel something, and reminds you that you're not alone. Sometimes it's not the perfect advice or the loudest voice that moves us. It's the quiet honesty of someone who says, I've been there. A real lived experience has the power to reach people in ways that lectures never could. That's why our personal stories matter, not because they're dramatic or flawless, but because they're true. There's something beautiful about sharing what you've gone through, not to impress, but to connect. Because no matter who we are, we all carry stories that shaped us, moments of failure, moments of breakthrough, times when we didn't know how we'd make it, but somehow we did, and those are the stories that breathe life into others. You don't need a stage to be inspiring. You just need to be willing to share what's real. Maybe you grew up feeling unseen, unheard. Maybe you've walked through heartbreak, rejection, loss. Or maybe you've struggled silently, smiling in public while battling your demons in private. Whatever your story is, someone out there needs to hear it. Someone is waiting for the words you've been too afraid to say out loud, because stories break walls, they soften hearts. They remind people that behind every strong person is a history of battles they don't always talk about. And when you have the courage to speak your truth, you give others permission to do the same. You tell them you're not the only one, you're not too broken, you're not too late, but sharing your story doesn't always mean telling everything. Sometimes it means choosing one moment, one lesson, and offering it as a gift. It's saying, here's what I've learned, here's how I fell, here's how I stood back up, and you'll be surprised. What you thought was ordinary might be exactly what someone else needed to hear. The world doesn't need more perfection. It needs more people who are honest about their process, because the most powerful stories aren't always about success. Sometimes they're about struggle, about trying again. About learning to believe in yourself after years of doubt. Those are the stories that stay with us, the ones that show us we don't have to have it all figured out to move forward. It's easy to hide behind filters, behind polished versions of ourselves. But it's the unfiltered moments that leave an impact. When someone shares their truth with vulnerability and humility, something inside us lights up. We realize that if they made it through that season, maybe we can too. Sometimes your story isn't even for you. Sometimes it's the key that unlocks healing in someone else. The exact moment you thought would break you, that part might become someone else's anchor. That pain you never wanted to talk about. It might become a bridge that brings someone back to hope, because healing happens in community. Growth happens when we're honest, not just with others, but with ourselves. So don't be afraid to speak up. You don't have to be perfect to be powerful. You just have to be real. Tell your story the way it happened, not the way you wish it had. Talk about the fears, the doubts, the grace that met you in the middle of your mess. Because someone out there is tired of pretending. Someone out there is holding their breath, waiting for a sign that they're not alone. And when they hear your story, your real, raw, unfinished story, it might be the exact thing that gives them strength to keep going. You never know what part of your life might become someone else's reason to believe, so speak, share, be brave. Your story is not just about what happened to you, it's about what it awakened in you. It's a reminder that even through the pain there is purpose. That even through the silence there is something worth saying, because when you inspire through your own narrative, you're not just telling a story, you're lighting a path, not just for others, but for yourself too. So, the next time you see someone smiling, take a moment to appreciate the strength it might represent. Understand that behind that smile could be a story of perseverance, of battles fought and won, of challenges met with unwavering resolve. Let's strive to look beyond the surface, to offer kindness without judgment, and to recognize the silent warriors among us.